And so now we have Judge Suzanne Radcliffe. So you guys get ready for some great information. She's a former associate judge for the 306th District Court in Galveston County. She's also had a position with the Galveston County District Court Attorney's Office and Family Law Division. She's an attorney with decades of experience in family law, helping clients through divorce, custody, and child support issues, as well as adoption and paternity cases. Suzanne is most proud of her work in helping children in abuse and divorce cases and the recognition she has received for doing this work. She has served as a pro bono legal counsel in the court systems for children in the CASA program and Galveston County. She has also presented and lectured on family violence and protective orders. She is a member of the Galveston County Bar Association, protective orders, and serves as an amicus attorney. So everyone, all rise. Your Honor, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, let me make sure I can do this. Okay, here we go. Okay. I do this because I'm computer illiterate, so please bear with me. My daughter, Lauren Radcliffe, she is actually an intern for Children for Tomorrow, so I want to give her a big shout out. She helped me with my presentation. I could not have done all my pictures and stuff without her. So, and she was giving me a little tutorial on how to do the PowerPoint yesterday. So hopefully I've learned something. Okay, so like she said, my name is Suzanne Radcliffe. I used to be a judge for 17 years in Galveston County. I have worked with basically CPS cases, but also done a lot of divorce cases. I also had the privilege to talk with children in my office. As you know, in Texas, you can file a motion to interview a child. That you have to do it. It's mandatory if the child is of age 12. So I've talked to, I don't know, about probably over 17 years, thousands of children, which gives me, I think, a kind of unique perspective because, you know, they're in there, they're not with their, no attorneys are there and their parents aren't there. So I try to really take my time, don't rush them, kind of figure out what is going on here. And I can, you know, you talk about, you know, talking to how parents talk to their kids. There's kids that come running in the door to me going, I want to live with my mom. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about the background, you know, what's going on. And then, you know, they can just say, and they can't look me in the eyes, and they're just like, well, I don't like my dad. And I'm like, well, you know, what's wrong with your dad? Well, he doesn't pay his child support, you know, on time. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, that's, you know, child, you know, I always make a joke about child support stupid. That has nothing to do with you. Those are grown-up issues. But as a judge, you know, kids say the cutest things, and the funniest things they've ever said to me was, hey, you don't look like Judge Judy. And then the other thing they said to me is, my mom said that you were you're young. And they come in, they go, well, you're not young, you're old. And I'm like, okay, thank you. You know, you gotta love the kids, what kids say. So let me talk to you. Let me start with my presentation and just say, this is kind of just showing you how children are torn in the middle of a divorce case. They don't have to be, but oftentimes parents intentionally, unintentionally put them in the middle, use them as pawns, uses them in a way to try to get something that they want, whether it's more money, whether it's more child support, or whether it's just more of their children's attention. They don't want to share their child. They don't want the other parent involved. They want to be the only parent. And oftentimes I've heard people say, well, you know, their dad's terrible, but I'm dating John now, and John's a really great guy. John's much more of a dad than their real dad. And I say, well, that's interesting because, you know, that's not really your determination to make. You know, they have a dad. You know, you can't just pick and choose John to be your kid's parent. And so I cannot tell you right then, if I have a client that says that, or if I'm on the bench and I hear that, that to me automatically says that they've been saying some probably bad things about the other parent. Okay, what is parental alienation? This is my definition. So it's my opinion of what it is. This is out of any book. But basically, in short, it's brainwashing by one parent against the other parent to try to get control or manipulate that child. Okay, and I want to stress that I think it really boils down to reiterating saying something about the other parent over and over and over again. And children, begin to learn that, if it's said enough, the children will believe it's true. Okay. And also what I found is a person who, the targeted parent, they get really, really discouraged in whether it's a custody battle, whether it's, the court system, whether it's just fighting with the other parent all the time. They get really discouraged, and sometimes they give up, and they're like, or they'll come to me for a modification or something, and they're like, well, but I haven't talked to my daughter, in 8 months. And I'm like, why? Well, it's just, the mom just gives me so much trouble, and we scream and we fight, and I don't want to put my daughter through that. Well, what that presents is you have a child living day to day, every day with the other parent without getting the benefit of the targeted parent. So the targeting parent is not able to rehabilitate themselves. In other words, if mom's sitting there saying, dad's a monster, dad's a monster, dad's a monster, and dad doesn't get to come on the weekends to say, hey, it's me, I'm your dad. So the only opinion that your child is getting of the targeting parent is they're a monster or they're horrible. So I really think that parent out there that's being targeted, hang in there. I mean, I know it's frustrating. I know the court system's frustrating. I get frustrated as a practicing attorney, and also I do represent children as an amicus. It's frustrating. So I know where you're coming from, but you have to hang in there. And I think also you have to have the right attorney. And I say that the meaning, not all clients who come to me are the alienating parent. And sometimes I get the alienating parent. Sometimes I get the targeted parent. Obviously, the first thing I do with an alienating parent is sit them down and say, look, in my experience as a judge that I've talked to all these kids, what you're doing is not good for your children. It's detrimental to them. And I try to really, say, hey, let's stop it. And I'm kind of blessed because if the parent continues to do that, I basically say I can't be your lawyer. I get to choose that way. I'm not going to, go on the bandwagon to do this to the other parent. I just don't do that. If I'm on the end, if I represent a targeted parent, it's a lot of, encouraging them to stay, hang in there. We'll get this taken care of. Hopefully in the end, we'll all work out. And you know what I always tell my client when they talk about, oh, their dad is just horrible. He did this or he did that. I said, you know what? Kids are smart, and kids are going to figure out, their parent, whether without your help. If dad's an ass, the kids eventually will find out that dad's an ass. If mom's an ass, the kids are going to figure that out without you having to put your 2 cents in. So I just tell you, kids can figure all that out, but it should not be from your direction, from your opinion of what the other parent is. Okay. So like I said, that's just my unofficial definition of parental alienation. I think it's just basically poisoning a child's mind. I think it's interfering with the other with the other parent's relationship with the child. And I get asked, is it intentional or is it unintentional? I don't know. I think it can be a little bit of both. I think sometimes the parent is, the one that might be hurt from the divorce doesn't realize what they're doing. And so they're kind of doing it kind of the back door, maybe inadvertently. And an example of that would be rolling your eyes or huffing whenever your child mentions dad. And I'm saying mom, dad, but in my experience, I've had a lot of women being the alienators. But so I'm always saying mom and dad. So I think that a lot of times you just have to, breathe, and you have to figure this out. And rolling your eyes when your kid says, oh, dad, did this, or, hey, dad bought me this, and rolling your eyes like, that's not good. That's really putting a negative light on that relationship with that child. And I always tell the parent, remember, dad or the mom is half of you, is half of the child. So when you call dad names or call mom names, the child is really thinking to themselves, wow, am I like that? Am I going to do that? And that's just a really bad burden or hard burden for a child to bear. So I think that's real important for, parents to realize that, hey, you're all 50-50, and whatever bad traits the other parent has, the other kid and they need to know about it. You know, they need to know what a great parent that is, what a good parent that is, you know, talk about their good things. You know, there's other things like, I like when the other person said, like when the child's getting ready to go to the other parent's house, you go, oh, I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna call me. Here's your phone. If you know, if you're not safe, call me. You know, if you know, if you need anything, call me. Well, first of all, when you tell a kid, hey, if you're not safe, they're going to be like going, oh, why did mom say that or dad say that? They're going to be looking around like, okay, what's unsafe, you know? So they're going to be on kind of edge the whole weekend. Okay, so that's not good. And if you say, call me if you need anything, well, then the kid's going to think, well, dad is making me eat green beans tonight and I want to go to McDonald's. So I'm going to call mom because she said to call me if you need anything. Well, I need McDonald's. So then you have the child, you know, kind of, you know, playing the mom or the dad saying, hey, come bring me this or do this. So it's just, you know, it's just not good at all. Also, I think social media has really added to parental alienation because children read parents' postings, okay? And if you don't think they do, they do. Okay, so when you put on there, hey, you know, Melissa's dad is horrible. Oh my God, this is what he did. Can you believe this? Or Melissa's dad's new wife is blah. Kids are reading that. They told me that all the time when I was on the bench that they would read their parents, you know, social media. So be careful what you put on your social media too, because even though you're not saying it verbally to your child's reading it. So those are all things just to keep in mind. So I want to stress my biggest point of parental alienation is reiterating. And reiterating the definition is just saying something and again, typically for emphasis or clarity. So as you see in the picture, mom's sitting there shaking it with her finger, you know, probably saying, son, you know, your dad's a horrible person, or, you know, if your dad does this, you know, you make sure you do this. So it's just saying it over and over and over, repeating the same negative thing about the parent. And I always say to the parent, if my client was doing it, just think how great the kid would feel if you could say good things about the other parent. Like instead of saying what a bad daddy is, why don't you say, hey, you know, that was fun. You know, your dad's really good at that. Or your dad likes to play chess or golf or whatever. That's really cool. Maybe you can go do that with him. So that would be a way to me that you could encourage a child to, you know, have a better relationship with the other parent. I'm an amicus on a case right now, and I have my paralegal with me. She's sitting here with me, Karen. She goes with me to talk to the children all the time. I've been the amicus. It'll be about a little over a year. This case it's a modification of custody. Mom has custody. Dad's trying to get custody. These kids were precious when I first met them. They're just innocent, precious little children. They have changed so much over this year. I can't even stress how much they've changed. And it's not a positive change. It's really weighing on them, this case. It's going to be a jury trial. The custody issues. Dad speaks way too much to them about the case. Dad has them, let me tell you some things that dad does. Dad has them spying on mom. Like, hey, go in your mom's, you know, in your mom's study and open the drawer and see if you can get these bank accounts. He actually wanted the child to get these bank accounts and give them to him so he could copy them. Okay. So you can imagine the stress of the child going, God, should I do that? You know, because mom will get mad at me, but if I don't do it, dad's gonna get mad at me. It's horrible. Okay. I can tell by the words that the 9-year-old used. She said one time, "Ugh, my mom texts me all the time. She manipulates me." And I said, wow, that's a big word. What does that mean? And she goes, I don't know. She goes, but it's not good. And I just kind of thought, that's interesting. So I said, let me see some of these text messages. So I looked at them and it was things like, hey, have a great day at school today. You know, good luck on your test. You know, it was the same things that the dad would text to the kid. But when the mom was doing it, the dad was saying it's manipulative, okay? Which I thought was interesting. I always get text messages when they're with their dad. So on the first, third, and fifth weekends, when they're with dad, I get text messages. I really want to live with my dad. I don't feel safe in my mom's house. So as an amicus, I really have to go, I have to go investigate everything that dad says. And, and I do, I investigate it, and nothing has ever panned out to be as severe, let's say. I mean, it did happen, let's just say, but it has not been as severe as as what dad said it to be. And I'm also in constant communication with the therapist. She and I are on the same page. Um, just to make sure, hey, you don't think any abuse is going on, do you? She says, no. I said, well, I don't either. We're on the same page. We talk a lot. Dad, there was a question about subpoenaing the therapist record. Dad's attorney is, once the subpoena the records is probably going to try to subpoena the records. I, as the amicus, I'm very much against that. I would go to court. I'd file a motion, what we call quash the subpoena, to tell the judge that I think that's really interfering with the children's relationship with the therapist. And I did not think that it's going to do anyone any good. If you want the therapist to testify, she can, but I don't think it's going to do any good to get her notes. Oh, another thing Dad did was, I thought was interesting. Oh, did you know your mom did this? She shoplifted from some store when she was 14. And I go, wow. I'm like, ha. I go, you weren't even in your mom's belly at that time. How do you know? Well, I know how they know. They're like, well, my dad told me. And I was like, oh, okay. And they also said things like, what happened when, that, she was, they dated when they were younger, things that, teenagers do. And this, oh, can you believe your mom did this? And I was just like, well, those are things that teenagers do. I mean, your mom's older now, she's gotten over it. And those are just things that a parent should never be telling a child about, something that a parent did when they were younger. I mean, what is the purpose of that? How could you even justify it? What would be the purpose? There is no justification. The child that, dad tells the children to record mom, to spy on mom. So it's a constant, so mom constantly lives in fear of, oh my God, I mean, should I discipline my child? Because if I discipline my child, dad's going to say I'm abusing the child. So she's on eggshells. The kids are on eggshells. Everyone's on eggshells, I guess, except for dad. Okay. Dad's allegations started out with mom's new husband. He was this monster. It all got investigated by CPS and the police and everyone. Nothing panned out. Then it went to dad's 15-year-old son. Oh, he's a juvenile delinquent. He's horrible. He shouldn't be around the children. I investigate that. Look into that. No, I didn't find anything. Mom is drinking. So then I had to go with the kids and say, adults drink, and that's not necessarily bad. It's bad if you overdrink. Then they'll say, well, my mom got drunk. And I say, no, these are a 12-year-old. He just turned 12 and she's 9. She's 9, maybe almost 10. And I said, what do you mean by drunk? I said, what does that mean? And she told me, she goes, well, my dad is an ex-police officer. He's now a lawyer, by the way. My dad is an expert in drunk driving. And he told me the signs to look for. And that was my mom. And I was just like, oh, okay. So your dad wasn't even there. He's an expert, but okay. Then we went from mom drinking to now mom is abusing the children and they are not safe with their dad. So I get emails from with their mom, I'm sorry. Get emails from dad constantly going, you need to get them out of that house. I need to move. You need to move. And I'm just like, we have a jury trial coming up at the end of May. Hopefully all this will come out from the jury. I talk to both lawyers all the time. I kind of hint around to mom's lawyer. I kind of say things like, hey, you might want to talk to this teacher because what dad said wasn't true. So make sure that they're getting that covered. I hope it comes out in a jury trial that dad is brainwashing the children. It'll be interesting for me to see if that comes out, but I hope that fact does come out. Also, often I see in brainwashing or parental alienation is the parent is best friends with their child and tries to friend them and try to talk about their dad or the other parent like you would with your girlfriend, like girls talk about a boyfriend. Like, oh, can you believe he did this? Or haha, laugh, what do you think about this? I find a parent talking to a child about things like that there's no reason why children need to hear about adult issues. They're going to be adults soon enough. They're going to be getting all this soon enough, okay? So those are just, you know, that's just reiterating to the other parent bad things about the other parent. To me is parental alienation. Okay, in the legal world, the word parental alienation is really controversial. The first time I heard it was in, I think I was at a conference in around 2004. It came in the early 2000. It was a real big issue. And we had, you know, psychologists and therapists come and talk to us and stuff. And, you know, that's when the term, I heard it in the legal term, is parental alienation. Why is it controversial? Because obviously, you know, lawyers are advocates. So when you advocate for a side, you know, I can't call up the other attorney and go, hey, you know, I really think your client, you know, is really practicing parental alienation. And they're not going to go, oh yeah, you're right, I'll talk to them. Because then what they're going to do is they're going to backflash with me and say, well, your client did A, B, and C. And so, you know, no one's ever going to admit that their client is doing parental alienation. Alienation in itself in the legal world is very subjective. It's subjective because it's just subjective. We don't really have any definitions as far as lawyers go. Lawyers like to look at a code. We have the family code. We like to look at the law and go, whoa, that's the law. I can quote this to the judge. That's the law. We don't have that with parental alienation. There's no statutes for it. So it's very, very abstract. It's kind of out there. We really hope that you get a judge that has some training in it, background training, and kind of understands what's going on. But remember, judges are people. They have their own opinions. They have their own perceptions. They might have gone through something through a divorce. And, you know, you just kind of hope that they understand. Every judge is different. It depends on what county you're in, depends on what court you're in, depends on whether it's an older judge, older in age versus a younger judge. I think younger judges, in my opinion, are probably more open-minded to maybe sitting back and realizing that happens. I think older judges are like, I think they probably have a little bit more of a closed mind. I'm not sure, but I think that it depends on your judge. So therefore, you know, are you in Harris County? Or are you in Galveston County? Or are you in Tarrant County? So it's really going to depend. You need to know about your judges. It's really going to depend on what their viewpoint is. The other thing is the evidence for alienation is really hard to get. That's why I love to hear about Children for Tomorrow assessment, because that is actually a concrete piece of evidence, a tool, you know, that the parent who is being the targeted parent can use, hopefully, against the other parent. That's not subjective, because it actually has, as she went over before I got on, they actually have objective tests that they use. So it's not just, oh, I don't like the dad, I thought he was rude, or I don't like the mom, I thought she was bitchy. It's actually a test that they go through. So I like that. I think that's great. I would love for judges to order that. Just on their own out of cases, but I'm not sure really they do. A lot of opponents say there is no empirical data on this. It is junk science. You know, I'm not going to take that, you know, to the judge or a jury. And as I think the speaker said earlier, it is kind of hard to qualify someone as an expert. And we have to do that in order to get testimony in as expert testimony. It's gotten harder through the years, and it's pretty hard. So I'm glad to know that Children for Tomorrow took that into consideration, figured out how they can make, you know, the people that are going to testify experts, because that helps a lot. So evidence is often hearsay, okay? That's what lawyers have to deal with. And I think lay people really don't understand it. A lot of lawyers don't understand it. It's probably the most difficult thing in evidence that you learn in law school. And it's something that you really have to practice a while to get it, okay? So there's exceptions to hearsay, which lawyers love, because that way I can get in what the child said, okay? So normally you can't get in what a child said. So even though you know the child said A, B, and C, you can't get it into evidence. So there's some exceptions to that. So a present sense impression, I would describe it as something after the wreck happens, the police officer comes and says, "Hey, did you observe the wreck? Kind of tell me what happened." And I go, "Yes, I was at the stop sign and I observed that car go through, blah, blah, blah." So that's my present sense impression of what happened, okay? It's what I saw, and it was close to the event that it happened. It can't be 2 weeks later. So if the officer calls me 2 weeks later, that's not a present sense of an impression, okay? Excited utterance is also very similar. That's when you go, "Oh my God, did you see that wreck?" Or, "Oh my God, did you see that car hit that other car?" That is something that can come in evidence. So if you have a child who runs in the door and says, "Dad hit me," or, or something like that, and it happened right outside the door when Dad was dropping off the child, that's going to be admitted into evidence. So that's something that lawyers look for. Then existing mental and emotional or physical condition, that's a statement they tell the doctor. "Yeah, my arm hurts because my dad twisted it." Or, "I'm feeling really sad." That's a mental impression that they tell. It's usually a professional. So those kind of things are going to come in. But as the lawyer trying to prove alienation, your hands are kind of tied. You really kind of hope these things happen. That's why I'm so glad about Children for Tomorrow. I've never used them. I'm going to use them. I wish I could use them on this case that's set for jury trial next month. I think it'd be really, we'd really learn a lot, but the trial is too late. So those are some things that you have to take into consideration when you're trying to try the case. Texas viewpoint. In Texas, it's been called a syndrome. I know in the later 2000s, the courts were saying, I mean, not 2000, I'm talking about 2010, 2012. It kind of, the way it's kind of turned, and it came out saying, "Oh, it's not a syndrome. It's not even the DSM. It's just some, I don't know, therapist or psychologist making up something." Okay. So it became this syndrome. So we don't use parental alienation. That's kind of a trigger word in courts. I usually say the parent is interfering with my client's parenting time, or the other parent is interfering with my client being able to bond with their child. So I kind of try to use stuff like that, because parental alienation, judges' heads just kind of flip. Okay. So like I said, there's been a difference in parental alienation, what it is and how courts view it. And it's come around. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about case law, because I did some case law research. There's approximately 100 cases in Texas that mention the word parental alienation. I just put in parental alienation as my keywords in my research. Now, keep in mind, out of those 100, a lot of also came up parental termination, parental rights. So I kind of had to weed through those. But it's really interesting. I mean, there is case law out there that actually says what a parent did was parental alienation. So if you have a case and you're a lawyer representing the targeted parent, these cases, I think are great, because if you can just take these examples from these cases that the appellate courts have said, yeah, that's alienation. Okay. So keep in mind also that the appellate courts have said, and they say it over and over again, the trial court judge has complete discretion. Complete discretion. They are the boss, and the appellate court is always going to defer to them. Okay. The only time they're not is if there's an abuse of discretion. So you notice a lot in these cases, when you read the cases, it'll say, the person complaining would say, "Oh, the judge abused their discretion because they said that I alienated my child," or something. And that's an abuse of discretion. So that's the only way you're really going to get around the trial court's ruling. But I mean, there are cases that they have done that. So also, I want to reiterate to you guys about Texas policy. And this is actually in the family code. It says in the family code, courts recognize emotional and financial costs of custody cases, including harmful effects on the children, which can cause perpetual emotional turmoil for children and alienation from one parent. These cases can exacerbate and polarize the child from a parent. So that's the key word here, is polarizing. One parent refuses to share the child with the other parent. So they try to, I call it, stingy. They try to take the other parenting time away. And that is really polarizing that child. So some interesting appellate cases. I am actually in a conference right now in San Antonio, and I've been listening to cases, so I know it's very boring to listen to cases, especially if you're not a lawyer. But these are some of the more interesting cases that I picked out. If you want the exact sites to them, you can email me. I'll get them to you. But I just picked out the keywords or something that I thought was interesting. And so I hope this will help you out. So let's talk about my first case is Brazos. It was a Brazos County case. It came out of the Houston Court of Appeals. A lot of cases out of Houston. Houston has 2 appellate courts. We have the 1st and the 14th because there's so many cases that come out of the Houston area. That encompasses Beaumont, Galveston, Brazoria County. I'm not really sure how many counties, but it's a lot. It's a very, very big appellate district. So basically, this is a case where the court found a clear pattern of alienation by the father and his family. I thought this case was interesting because it actually gave examples of how his family was contributing to alienating the mother from the father and from the paternal side. They actually actively engaged in parental alienation. I thought that was interesting. Father actually lost custody. Mom appealed the lower court's ruling, and father actually lost custody. Okay. Now, the court made a big deal in this case about things that happened after the divorce. And what I like to look at is what was the parent's relationship with the child prior to the divorce? Because I think that's your baseline. Because if it changed after the divorce, if the child's mad because the parents divorced, it should be an anger towards both parents equally. Okay. The only reason a parent would be more mad at mom or more mad at dad, it's because one parent is saying it's your dad's fault. It's your mom's fault. We got divorced. Okay. Otherwise, it should be an equal anger at both parents for getting divorced. So this court really talked about the difference of this child after the divorce. The mom said, basically the children were demeaning towards her. Father was unresponsive to mom when she asked questions about the children. The school, when the mom went to the school, they looked at the paper and said, we didn't even know that children had a mom, or if a mom in the area, you're not listed as the emergency contact. All we have is dad's family. We have a paternal grandmother listed. So the school knew nothing about mom. That should not happen. I mean, the school should know there's a dad. If there is a dad, there's a mom. If there's a mom. Okay. The father encouraged the mother the kids to call the mom by her first name. I see this. I see it with dads and moms. The dad and the kids will say, "Oh, Tony," and you're like, "Tony, oh, my dad." That's what my mom told me to call him, or vice versa. So that's never appropriate. I don't even know why a parent would do that, but never appropriate. Okay. The children in this case knew about adult issues stemming from the divorce. Okay. I think there was an adultery, someone had an affair. Maybe it was mom. Kids knew too much about that. They knew. So the only way the kids would have known about that is from what that father told them. And the father blamed the mom for the divorce. It's your mom's fault, 100%. We're divorced now. We're not a family because of your mom. So that was interesting. So the blame went on the mom. Father refused to co-parent. And when the kids came back to the dad's house from the mom's, went to the mom's house, they were really, at first, it took them a while to get comfortable. They were really kind of, looking around like they were scared. And it took a couple hours or maybe a day for the children to settle in the mom's house. So that was all, that was what a court found parental alienation. They called it parental alienation. That was out of Brazos County. This is also a Houston. This is a 2019 case. This is when father got custody from mom. So this is a case where mom was alienating the father, okay? Dr. Alvarez, I don't know if y'all are familiar with her. She is she's a psychologist. She's in the Houston, Clear Lake area. She's wonderful. She's been a big advocate of recognizing parental alienation. She testifies all the time. The judges really respect her. She's really, really good. In this case, Dad had her testify as an expert regarding parental alienation. Mom insisted that the children's exchange be done at the police station. Now, why? There was never any allegations of abuse. There was never any allegations that Dad did anything to cause the exchange to be done at the police station. But all of a sudden, the kids are like, "Oh, we have to go see our kid, dad at the police station. That's what makes us, feel safe." What do you think? What do you think the kids are going to feel when the mom drives off and leaves you with the dad? The kids are kind of looking around, going, "Okay, I'm at the police station now, but now I'm going to leave with my dad. What's my dad going to do to me?" So, in order, the police station, there should never be exchanges at the police station unless there's a really, really true worry that there's going to be harm done to the mom. But the children interpret it as a harm to them. Okay, it says. Mother was constantly untruthful about dad to children, to anyone who would listen. So there was evidence that she talked to teachers badly about dad. She talked to coaches badly about dad. She talked to other parents of the children's friends bad about dad. Okay, she just kind of was very vocal about it. She also was trying to interfere with the child's therapy by calling the therapist and telling the therapist all the bad things dad did in the marriage, which the therapist recognized that as like, "Okay, thank you, but that's not really what we're dealing with right now." The trial court basically said it had enough evidence to support Dr. Alvarez's finding that mom intentionally and repeatedly attempted to alienate the kids from the father. So let me stress a key word in all the research I've done. The key word that I found that courts granted or said there was parental alienation, it was repeated and intentional. Okay, so keep that in mind when we review these other cases. Those are the two words that really struck out to me. This is a 2020 Houston case. Father alleged that mom did parental alienation against him, but the court said they believed it did not rise to the level of harming the children's present environment, saying the present environment was dangerous. What you have to realize if you're not a lawyer is we have a really pretty high burden to switch custody in this case. This is a modification. And if you want a immediate switch of custody, you have to prove there's an emergency, there's a present danger to the child's well-being or physical health. Okay, so basically, this court's just saying, yeah, mom did some pretty bad things, but it didn't rise to a level. Some of the things that mom did was that dad said she did. Children called him by his first name twice. He actually said on the record, the attorney asked, "How many times have the children called you, Bob?" And he said twice. So I think the appellate courts thought about that. It happened twice. Children they were told by the mom that he is not their dad. When the children said, "My daddy will put you in jail," and the children referred to their stepdad as daddy. They used mom's new husband's last name. And at one visit, mom followed him around Chuck E. Cheese. So those are all the evidence that the dad put in to say why he should get custody. The trial court denied him getting custody. He appealed it. The appellate court upheld the trial court. Example, the appellate court said, "We're going to defer to the trial court." They heard the evidence. They saw the witnesses. They must have thought there wasn't enough to switch custody. So that's a case where they didn't switch custody. This is out of Fort Worth. It's 2021 case. So the father had an expert that testified about parental alienation. Okay, that there was testimony mom was bad mouthing the dad. Mom planted things in the children's head that actually didn't even happen. That she would say things like, "Oh, your father got arrested for something and he didn't get arrested." So she was putting false things in the children's head. In this case, the appellate court said, there might be, in this case, a combination of alienation and a bad behavior by the parent accused, saying that they're being alienated. And what happened was the dad said, hey, I'm being alienated again. Well, mom came back and said, no, let me tell you something. This is what you did. And she gave examples of, you called the police on our son and actually had our son, I think it was 14, arrested. You did that in front of our daughter. You talked really poorly about our son to our daughter, really upset the daughter. There's all kind of examples of things that that dad did. But so dad came in, saying, oh, I'm being alienated against, but dad also had behavior that contributed to his bad relationship with the son and daughter. Okay. Oh, also the trial, funny, dad accused the judge in the trial court of being in conspiracy and aiding parental alienation. Well, it's probably not a very good thing to do, because in family law cases, you go in front of the same judge for the whole life of your case, unless the children move to a different county or something. So that man's probably going to have to go in front of the same judge who he accused was basically conspiring against him. So probably not a good thing to do. 2021 El Paso. I tried to pick cases from all over the state because, as you can see, like I said earlier, it depends on what court you go in and then what appellate court you land in. So there's all kind of different opinions or cases on this. So this is a case where father appealed because mom got custody away from father. And father said the trial court made an error giving mom custody, okay? And he accused mom of a pattern of perjury, false reporting, and parental alienation, okay? And what did mom do in regard to specific alienation? Dad's only claim was that she acted maliciously towards him in the communication with the kids. So it basically, from reading the record, it was just saying that she talked badly, yelled at him basically in front of the children heard it, okay? No doubt that's bad, but this court says, yeah, that's not enough to raise it to parental alienation. We're going to go ahead and affirm that mom got custody. 2022 trial court found a clear indicia of parental alienation and immediately ordered the children taken away from mom and given to dad, and gave mom supervised visitation. This is real unusual. I read this case. Basically, the evidence was mom constantly kept the kids from seeing their dad. So dad would show up at the house, kids weren't there. There was evidence that mom was making concrete plans to move out of the country with the children. Mom constantly questioned the children about their dad, about what they did with their dad, and made negative remarks about that. So the trial court said, hey, this is bad, and immediately said, like, today, hand over those kids to dad. Dad's going to have custody. So that's really unusual. I don't really see that very often. They usually say, let's wait till the next semester, or let's wait till the summer's over, or something like that. So to grab children away immediately is that's pretty drastic. And obviously the court must have found some drastic reasons to do that. But I thought that was interesting. So this is Amarillo. This is a 2022 case. Father filed for custody, okay? And actually, the trial court gave him custody because he claimed mother practiced a pattern of alienation. Here again, the courts are looking at a pattern. They're looking at repeated behavior. They're looking at how many times does something happen. In this case, they found a pattern of alienation by mom. So some things that moms did is mom undermined dad's discipline. She interfered with father's possession periods. Now, interfering can be not just, we think of interfering meaning that the mom didn't let the children go with the dad, but interfering with the other parent's possession periods can mean the mom constantly calls, calling constantly to the kid, and if the kid has a cell phone, they're constantly calling the kid cell phone. If they don't have cell phones, they're constantly calling dad. And let's remember, we're talking about a weekend. This mom is away from her kids from Friday to Sunday. We're talking about 2 days here. And she is calling, hey kids, I want to FaceTime. I want to see you. So there's all kind of evidence that she was just constantly interfering. Dad's trying to watch a movie with the kids, and mom is just blowing up their phones, wanting to see what's going on, to FaceTime them. So that was one of the things that mom was doing. Mom did not, this is really interesting. Dad would go to the children's activities, and mom didn't let the kids sit with him, did not let the kids speak to him. The kids were to walk by him and not even glance at him. Okay. That was real appalling to me. In other words, here you are in public, mom's with the kids, she's walking by dad, and dad's, I'm assuming, saying, hey kids, what's going on? And she's just grabbing their head to kind of like lead them away. So what does that tell the kids? Ooh, it's bad for me to talk to my, to my mom at my football game. And it's telling the other kids, ooh, what's wrong with the dad? It's telling the other parents going, wow, that must be a really bad guy if mom to react that way. So that was one of the things that mom did. This mom also showed screenshots of conversations between her and the father. Now, we all know what we can do on text messages and what we say to exes and, and things. And what we say to our exes, I mean, there's no law against it. It's fine. And as long as it's kept away from the children, fine. But when a mother actually takes a text messages and says, look what your dad said, without showing them the whole conversation, not that you shouldn't show them anyway, that's alienating the father from the mom. Okay. Mom interfered with the father's possession by constantly texting, FaceTiming, calling the kids during the time, and father got custody of the kids, and the appellate court said, yeah, we're going to uphold that. Father got custody. So this is a Corpus Christi case. Mother filed for custody from the father and claimed parental alienation. So basically, dad got custody, had custody. Mom claimed parental alienation. They had a parent facilitator who described the dad as being very uncooperative. She had plans for them to do and how to parent and how to resolve issues. Dad absolutely refused to do it. Actually, she testified at the trial court and just said that dad was just difficult to work with. I mean, he just was, and he was very hostile to the mom in the sessions. Okay, father sent a lot of negative messages on a parenting app. So we have parenting apps. We have some that are paid for, some are free. I like Our Family Wizard. It's probably one of the first parenting apps. It is paid for. I think it's $120 a year for each parent. But what I like about this and what judges love is they have something called a tone meter. Okay, a tone meter is when you write the other parent a message, okay, and it comes across as aggressive or hostile or mean, that the program actually says, oh, well, wait a minute, I think you should say this instead. So it actually warns you before you push that send button that what you're saying is rude or, upsetting. You probably shouldn't say it. This is an example of the mom said, why are you so bad at being on time? The tone meter said, hey, you might want to rephrase that as changeovers have been an absolute mess recently. So it's telling you how to say it nicely. So when you go to court and the judge knows that it has a tone meter on here, but still sees all these horrible things you're relaying to the other parent, you got a warning. You didn't just go off the handle and push send. You got a warning. Hey, don't send that. And I have had a client call me saying, what's wrong with Our Family Wizard? I said, what do you mean? He said, this is the father saying, every time I'm trying to send the mom a message, it redlines it and says, don't you send it, warning. And I said, well, that's a tool. What you're saying is too harsh, or they're asking you to rephrase it. He never did, because you could override it. He never did, but courts know that you have the option to say something different, okay? Father also tracked the mom. This was interesting. When it was father's time, when the father had the children with him, he would follow the mom on her nights without the children. She'd go out to dinner, she might go to happy hour, she'd do whatever single parents do. And literally he would have the kids in the car and say, look at your mom, look who she's with. Look how late it is at night. Look, she's out. Well, the kids are also out with the dad. So, but he would drag the kids around to different bars, say, look at your mom. So mom got custody in that case, probably good thing that she got custody, right? So San Antonio, mother had custody, father said he filed a mod asking for custody and won custody. Why did he win? Parental alienation was an issue in this case. And basically saying that so I'm sorry, this is the case where mom said her defense was, oh, wait a minute, dad should not get custody because he does parental alienation against me. In her examples, the courts just didn't buy it and said, no, we think there should still be a change of custody. So she used it as a defense mechanism not to change custody. So I guess if you're whatever side you're on, you could use it either way. But I thought that was interesting. She used that as a defense not to change custody. There's lots more cases. Like I said, I kind of feel like I kind of know a little bit more what's going on now. I also can tell you, I also looked up parental alienation around the country. There's approximately 11,000 cases in the United States that went up on appeal dealing with parental alienation. And if you think about it, that's probably not that many cases when you think about all the cases that go up in the Court of Appeals in the whole country. Lastly, I think this is I have this book, I read it, I give my clients a copy of it if I think they're being a little, maybe practicing some alienation. This is, it's called Dear Judge. These are letters that a judge compiled that they had gotten through the years from kids. And if you read these letters, I mean, you got to love it because it comes straight from the child. So I wanted to go over some of those letters with you guys because I think they're kind of cute. So the first letter is, I thought the worst thing was my parents getting divorced. I thought my life was horrible then. And the child says, I was wrong. This is the worst. Whichever parent I am with wants me to be loyal. So in other words, you got two factions here polarizing each other, polarizing the kids, saying, when you're with me, you're loyal to me. You had to be with me. Your dad's horrible, your mom's horrible. So this child right here is saying, both of my parents do that to me, okay? And he's saying, hey, I don't want to say anything bad about either parent, but I kind of feel like I have to because the kind of parent kind of makes me feel pressure to do that. He says, it makes me feel sad that I have to say something bad about my parent because I think that's going to please my other parent. Okay. He said, and then when I get dropped off at my other parent's house, it starts all over again with the other parent. So this is a kid who's saying he's getting it from both ends. It's making him very sad. He says, I remember when I was sad sometimes. Now I have trouble remember when I wasn't sad. So these are two parents, according to this kid, exercising some extreme polarization of that child. They probably don't even realize what they're doing. The next one is, I need you to help me. My dad is trying to be a good father now. He used to stink at it, but he's trying real hard. Now, my question would be is, why does this kid say that about the dad? Is that something from the child's observation or is that something he's getting from mom? I don't know. My mom says he is a liar and a cheat and you can never trust him, but he's not doing any of that stuff now. My mom does stuff to make it so my dad messes up. She thinks I don't know it, but I do. Dad knows it, but he doesn't do anything, doesn't say anything differently. My dad's getting good at finding out where I will be and has been showing up on his own. I was the only guy who did not have a dad before. Please make it easier for my mom so she won't be so mad. In other words, this kid is like so happy he's got a dad that's involved now, and he's kind of saying, hey, judge, can you kind of keep my mom from interfering with that? Because I'm kind of liking it now. So just a couple more. I thought this was cute because you got to, love what comes out of the mouth of babes. He says, can you ask God to help my mom? My dad says that since she's not a Christian, she's going to burn in hell for eternity. I love my mom and have asked Jesus to save her, but my dad said that would not help. He says she has to accept Jesus in her heart to be saved. So can you imagine one parent telling that child, your dad or your mom's going to go to hell and burn in eternity? I just can't see the purpose of that. Okay. Mommy says she'll be just fine because God loves her too. And the child says, since you're old and very important, could you please talk to God for me? I worry about my mom all the time. Okay, thought that's interesting. And then just shortly, the last letter that I wanted to show you guys is it says, Dear Judge, tell my mom if she wants to divorce my dad, she can, but tell her she can't divorce him from being my dad. And if you take home anything from this, I think you just need to tell kids, hey, I'm getting a divorce, we're getting a divorce, your dad's still a great dad. Maybe he wasn't a good husband, he's a great dad. Hey, maybe your mom wasn't a great, spouse to me, but she's a great mom. If you could keep that parameter, I think we're going to have healthy, happy children, where you can be have happy children. Okay, I always get asked, what do we learn or what can we do? Well, parents should act like the adult in the relationship or in the divorce and not the child. So it's kind of like when you hear your child say a bad name or call a bad name about another kid. What do? You say to your kid, hey, don't call Harry that. That's mean. We don't call people names, okay? Well, that's being the adult to the child. But sometimes parents need to be reminded that they need to be the adult and not the child. Children have enough on their shoulders when their parents are getting divorced. They don't need to be the referee. They don't need to be the message relayer. I've had cases where, I put a note in my kid's lunchbox for the mom to tell her that I wouldn't be there or, pick it up. And I said, well, why didn't you, tell mom, call mom? Oh, we don't talk. I don't talk to mom. So basically that man was relaying all his messages through the child. Okay, so that puts an enormous pressure on that child to make sure he gets the message right. What if he got the message wrong? It just shouldn't happen. So just remind your client or remind people, act like the adult situation. What can parents do to help their children cope in a positive way? Well, there's a lot to do. How the parents react to the other parent after the divorce is, I don't know if there's studies on it, there probably is, but I can tell you from my experience and my observation is 100% how that child's gonna be in that divorce situation. Is your child going to be okay? Your child's going to be okay if you keep it positive towards the other parent. You at least pretend to get along with the other parent in front of your child, and then you bite your lip. Whenever you think of something or you bite, you think of something bad about the other parent, you just sit there and you bite your lip, you don't say it. Think very carefully the words you choose to describe the other parent to your child. Okay, so just kind of, look at it again. If you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all. And that's what I'd like to say. Just don't say it. If you can't say anything nice about dad, about mom, just listen to what the kids are saying. Just go, oh, okay. Act excited when the children come back with the other parent. Hey, what'd you do? Oh my God, it sounds so fun. What movie did you watch? Oh, that's fun. Oh, your dad likes science fiction movies. That's good that you got to go do that with him or her. So ask questions without being invasive. Know the children that you care and you're interested without being overbearing and invasive. Okay. Now you might not care, you might not be interested, but pretend. Okay. Just pretend. So never criticize the other parent to the kids. Like I said earlier, that kid is half the other parent. So when you criticize the parent, you're criticizing the kid. And when I was on the bench and I talked to children in my office, I have had children tell me that. Well, my mom says dad's a horrible person and this and that. And so I don't know. I mean, am I that way? Am I a horrible person? It actually has the kid thinking, am I a horrible person? So, don't say it. Keep that in mind. Try to tell them positive thing about the other parent. I'm sure you married or you had a child with this person. There is something you can say nice about them. There's got to be something. Try to bring that out and say it about the other parent. I mean, you can find something nice to say. I'm sure you can let your kid know that there is something nice about the other parent. If you can, try to sit with the other parent at kids' events and stuff. You be the grown up, you pull your chair over to the mom or to the dad. Put on a perception that, hey, we are a united front for our kids. We are going to, no matter what happens between us, we're going to be here together for our kids, and kids like that. Never refer to their children as my child, my daughter, my son, because guess what? It's not just your child, your daughter, your son. It's y'all's daughter. It's our child. It's my daughter, our daughter. When I was on the bench and a parent would get on the stand and say stuff like, well, our daughter, da 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 da, I'm sorry. She would say my daughter, and I would kind of look at her like, and I would sometimes kind of be kind of rude and say, excuse me, are you talking about, is this a daughter or is this a child from another marriage? And they look at me like, no, this is a child that, we're in litigation about. I go, oh, okay, because you said my daughter, because when you're talking about the child and the other parent, it's y'all share that child with another person. Don't be best friends with your child. You don't need to tell your child all the bad things that your husband did, that your wife did. You don't have to, there's just no reason for it. You have friends to do that. If you don't have friends, get a therapist, talk to your parents or talk to your relatives, but don't talk to your kids about it. Those are adult issues that kids should not be burdened with. There's so much that children are burdened with now. They don't need you to add to it. By the way, I was divorced. My child is on this Zoom right now. I was divorced after being married for 17 years. My children were 9 and 7 when we got divorced. I guess from my experience being a judge and a family lawyer, I was not going to be that parent who destroys the other parent to my children. I just wasn't. I just made a conscious decision to everything I did and said was going to be positive. And I think my ex did too. He's a family lawyer. So we had 2 family lawyers in a divorce. And I think that maybe both of us learned something because I think we both handled it really, really well. We sat with each other at events. In fact, we sat with each other so much, people didn't even know we were divorced. But I would be like, oh no, we're divorced. My kids always knew that we're divorced, but we were there for them together. So if anything happened to them, we were going to be a united front. Okay. And lastly, children, they're our most precious commodity. It's the future of the United States and of our state. And they're just, they're cute. The cutest thing I ever heard a child say to me when I was on the bench was, he came in and he said, I said, what's going on? He said, talking. He said, well, my dad, he's doing really good now. My mom said my dad's doing really good now, and he's really a nice person. And he went to jail and he found God. And I go, oh, okay. And he goes, so I'm kind of hoping that my mom goes to jail, that she can find God, because I really hope that maybe she can be nice and maybe learn something when she's in jail. So I thought, literally, this kid was thinking, Dad went to jail and found God, and now he's nice, according to Mom, and literally asked me if his mother could go to jail so she could be nice. So that's pretty sad, but at least that's a kid's viewpoint on it. Thank you guys for doing what you do. Couldn't do it without you. If you have any questions, let me know.
Oh, thank
So,
you so much, Judge Radcliffe. That was just absolutely wonderful. I think we do have some questions for you. One of them is from a Jeff Golden. He wants to know, in Texas, can you litigate propose questions for the judge to ask in a child interview? And can a litigant get a transcript or an audio of the interview?
I don't think so. I've never heard of that. So I don't know. That's really never been brought up. The judge, keep in mind, the judge heard testimony regarding custody before they talked to the child. So the judge hopefully has taken notes. The judge knows the issues when they talk to the child. So hopefully that's what the judge is going to be focusing on. As far as the record, that's interesting. I just heard a case today. It got sent up on appeal because Mom said that she asked for the judge to talk to the child. It was recorded, there was a court reporter. She asked to get the record. She asked for it to be sealed so the other side couldn't get it. And I guess the judge didn't do what she wanted. The mom didn't do what the mom wanted her to do. And so then she said, well, I want to look at the transcript. And the judge goes, no, you can't look at the transcript. You asked for it to be sealed. So basically what this person was saying today at the conference is, no, probably not. The point is, that the reason they talk to the judge away from both parents is because you're really not supposed to know what the kids say, and that kind of protects the kids need to be free to be able to talk to you, and you can make your decision based on you can listen to the kid or not. Basically, the law says that you can take what they say in consideration, but you don't have to do what the kid asks you to do. So I would say no to both of those, but I've never seen the proposed question thing.
Okay. Well, we also have approximately what percent of Texas divorce cases go to trial rather than settling?
That's interesting. I would say, there probably is statistics on that. I would say a very, very, very small percentage. Um, I want to say 95% settle either in mediation or settlement agreements before. So I would say in Texas, only 5% of those go to trial, which, it's still a lot. We've got a lot of divorces in Texas, but the majority of cases settle.
Awesome. Okay. And then I have another one that is, I believe that usually parental alienation can only occur if a parent has an opportunity to isolate the child from the other parent. Do you support a rebuttal presumption of joint legal custody and equal shared physical custody beginning immediately upon parental separation?
Well, I am a big advocate of a 50-50 parenting time. I think that should be the presumption, and I think you should be able to rebut that to say why it shouldn't be. Let's say mom travels, she's out of the country all the time, or dad travels all the time. That's probably something, it shouldn't be 50-50, but I'm a big believer in 50-50, of course. Yes, I think it should be 50-50. And yeah, I think that you should be able to offer evidence why it should be 50-50. And just so you guys know, every year, the family section, we have people who are advocating 50-50 or really out there fighting. There's Fathers for Equal Rights. They do a lot of lobbying. They're really fighting for it. Then you have groups like you have domestic violence groups saying, "Oh no, women, that victimizes the woman." Child support, how's that woman going to support herself? And I'm saying it shouldn't be by child support because that's for the kids. But so there's a lot of debate in that every year, and there's a really division in the state bar with family lawyers about it. Okay, and judges. When I used to go to judges conferences, I used to be like, why shouldn't it be 50-50? You got a dad, you got a mom. They each contribute different things to that kid. And some judges were like, oh no, it should always be mom. That's what it was like when I was growing up, my mom, like I said, the younger judges are probably more progressive, but by all means, go to your congressman, go to your representative. It's a big issue every single legislative year. Next year is legislative year, 2025. It'll be on the table again. I hope it happens. I agree with one speaker. It's going to cut down on our litigation and lawyers' pockets. But it's going to be so much better for the children, I think.
And then another question is, how do you determine intentionality?
Like as a judge, so intentional, you just have to look at the facts surrounding the different actions. How many times does it happen? Is it repetitive? I'm probably going to say it's intentional. Did the kid overhear the mom talking to the friend on the phone? That's unintentional. It just, you have to look at the facts, and that's just totally subjective. But of course, the person's going to advocate saying it wasn't intentional. So.
And then I have from Phil DuPont, online is saying, oh, sorry, not that. Sorry, from Barbara. When you were a judge, how did you determine whether an allegation of sexual abuse was true or parental alienation, especially when CPS cannot decide what happened?
Yeah. So yeah, that's tough. Thank God I was never on a criminal bench. So I was an associate judge. So I heard all those cases from temporary orders. Temporary orders are really important because they set the tone. So whoever gets custody, usually in temporary orders, usually gets custody in the final case. Okay. So I would have to make that decision. How did I decide? I'd look at the outcry of the child, how specific the child was. Another thing I really looked at is how close was it to the divorce? Is this something that happened like 3 months after dad was getting his time? I think it's interesting when it comes out after a divorce, I don't believe that you become a pedophile after divorce, or you start abusing your child after divorce. If you're going to abuse your child or sexually abuse your child, I think you're going to be doing it during the marriage too. So you got to be real careful of that kind of stuff. You just have to look at the facts and hope you make the right decision.
Then I
Because
have
parents
for
use
you,
that.
this is a long one for you. There's this movement in Texas to holding law enforcement responsible for filing reports. When parents withhold children from parenting time as it is a criminal offense. It's out of desperation because family court is very slow to do anything when children are withheld. And what do you think of this?
So when you say, I guess the question, holding law enforcement responsible,
Let me repost the question in your chat.
okay. And I don't know how to look at it, so. Oh, here we go. Okay. Am I seeing it?
There it should go, pop up now.
Um, this is when I need Lauren. A lot of, do I go down to the very bottom?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Holding law enforcement responsible for filing reports. So a lot of times they don't file reports, they'll file an incident report. They have to put something on record. If you go to the police with a complaint like mom or dad's not releasing the child, they have to put something on the record. I mean, whether they call it a police report, they should call it an incident report. They have to do something. So that's already out there. When they withhold the children. Yeah, so is it a criminal offense? So interference with child custody, the statute, because I used to be on a committee for this. The statute was really written for those parents of extreme cases where that parent either took the child out of the country and didn't come back, and so you had to fight with the other country, or you took the kid out of state. You were really, I mean, that statute really came into place when parental kidnapping, basically, is where that kind of came from. But it kind of expanded to not releasing the child to the other parent during their time. Okay, you're not going to get police to act on that. They'll say it's civil, even though it's in the criminal code. They're not going to act on it. I know family courts are slow. It's frustrating to me as a lawyer when I have that client who says, "Oh, they didn't bring back the kid." Other than having the courts act on it more in the criminal arena, I don't really think there's an answer to it except for holding the feet to the fire criminally with the parents, but I don't know what to do about that.
Awesome, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I think most of our speakers are still on. You can ask Judge Radcliffe, I think Rod, Sean, I think Dana's still on. Jana's still on. Oh, this is a long question. I think Chris has a question for you. It's rather long. Chris, did you want to talk to her?
Yes, Judge Ratcliffe, Your Honor. I know that you address or criticize directly in regards to a parent criticizing a judge directly that they aligned with the alienating parent. That really stood out to me because I mentioned it earlier, and it's a concern of mine because there's underlying circumstances with this. In my situation, we do have an alignment, and that is the alienating parent is her previous firm is now a judge behind the chambers, correlating with the other judges. The county prosecutor is also from that same law firm. The supervisor of CPS is their own family member, and then you go in and they order the order says mental evaluation. You go do that, then honorably and respectfully do the entire recommendation of 1 year of building healthier relationships program before you put in your first order to change anything as you're instructed by the judge. And that judge aligns again with them to say, we're going to go with what the alienator is saying, and they're stomping their feet, and they want now a forensic evaluation and a psychological evaluation. That's what we meant, not what we wrote out on the order. I did that as well. All of the guardian ad litem report, mental evaluation, psychological evaluation, forensic evaluation are all in favor of me. They still have me at 1% time. So there's definitely a collaboration corruption, and I would like to know what, with your criticism, how do you address that? Because my approach to that is to move it out of county for obvious reasons. It's already been moved prior because it got moved out of county because of just the one supervisor of CPS. Now there's multiple reasons, and there's factual history that's lining up, and my attorney is in the same opinion as you, saying that it makes him look bad to accuse that judge in that court and to ask for a change of venue. But we have so much evidentiary history here. How would you address that on the opposite side of that criticism?
Well, I mean, so we have ethical standards, lawyers. I don't know why a motion for, I don't know why a motion for, I don't know why your lawyer did not file a motion, to disqualify you as the judge. You can do that, and the judge hears it. They hear their own disqualification. If you don't agree with it, it goes up to, the Texas sends another judge to hear it, okay? So I don't know if that happened or didn't happen. Probably should have been filed if it happened. You can't, family law cases, we don't have a change of venue in the sense, jurisdiction is statutory, okay? It's where the child lives. So you can't, I mean, unfortunately, you're going to live in that county or wherever the children live. That's going to be the county jurisdiction until the child turns 18. There's really nothing you can do about it. If the judge keeps continuing making these decisions against you, I would talk to your lawyer again about maybe filing another motion to disqualify the judge. Just do it again, and then put in evidence of what all you've been through, what all you've done, and what the judge hasn't done, and just kind of put it in there and feel like you're being discriminated against. What county is it? Can you say?
Benton County, Washington.
Is that
Washington State?
Oh, Washington State. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But what I understand from the law is if you have a reasonable doubt that you can have a fair trial, it's a reason to change venues. And historically, the case has already been moved to another county because of known conflict of interest, and now because of the judge and the prosecuting attorney, and the guardian ad litem even sending in further felony child abuse. They already went to jail for felony child abuse previous. And now they're sending in more evidence of it, and it's being blocked at a police level, at a CPS level, and at a court level. So we have a real issue with the county directly, that it's not fair, and it's concerning. And there's got to be a way to address this, because my attorney is even scared to present it. It's one of our next steps. But it's difficult. It's a touchy subject.
I don't know about other states. Our like I said, we don't really have venue in family law cases in Texas. It's where the child lives. And that's maintained by the primary parent, whoever is the primary parent. You really don't have a choice. And what I'm saying is, you're always going to go in front of that same judge in Texas, at least, if that person still lives in that county. And you certainly want to be careful what kind of cases you're bringing. You don't want to be constantly bringing cases, because your case is in front of that judge. So if that judge gets to where they don't like you, the only thing I think you can do is put in evidence, say, this is why I think the judge is biased against me. And then go on up. I mean, I don't know what y'all's procedures are ethically or how you grieve. We can grieve judges here. See about with the Bar Association, file some kind of grievance. Just make sure you have all your evidence in place to show why you feel like you're being discriminated against. I know that happens.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.